Hi guys, this is Mattias coming at you here with my first Battlefield 5 guide, and I want to start off with talking about settings. And here I'd like to spend some time and actually make my case, because there's always a lot of different opinions about what I'm going to say. And for the most part, I would always recommend people to play on as low graphic settings as possible, regardless of their hardware. Now there are a few exceptions to that, one of them being mesh quality that allows you to see players and details at longer distance, which can be very important if you are, for example, focusing a lot on vehicle gameplay or sniping. However, one of the things that you see in this clip, for example, and you see it several times, is that I have a hard time actually seeing my enemies. Therefore, of course, it makes it really hard to put my aim on them. Now, there are a variety of different reasons why you would have trouble seeing your enemies in games, but generally, not always, but generally, the higher your graphic settings are, the more details, such as particles and smoke and dust and stuff like that, is going to be in the way of you seeing your opponents, giving you a disadvantage over the ones that play on lower settings. Now, me personally, I don't always follow my own rules in this case. Sometimes, just because I'm a content creator, I play on a little bit higher graphic settings than I would recommend others, or prefer myself actually. And keep in mind, the settings you see me playing on in this video are things that I've actually changed, hopefully for the better. Now, one of the things that I've had trouble with when it comes to DICE games, and it started I think with Battlefield 3, is the very high contrast and saturation, something that I'm trying to balance out a bit with my Nvidia settings. Now, the easiest way I would say to explain this problem is that dark areas of the map are too dark, while bright areas of the map are too bright. Now, that can of course be due to a lot of different factors, but contrast is one of them. And if this is something that bothers you and you haven't tried to fix it already, then try to reduce the contrast. They got me. So yes, I'm sure you noticed that during the video there, sometimes in the dark areas I could barely see the enemies, and I missed several bullets just because of that. Of course, the problem with fixing your graphic settings is that then you have no excuses for playing bad anymore. So here I'm going to let you take a look at my graphic settings, and I'm not going to tell you too much about it. The benefit of being a streamer such as myself is that a lot of the people that watch my stream are much more knowledgeable about these things than I am. Also, it's definitely worth checking out the comment section below the video, because the same knowledgeable people that I just talked about are for the most part very friendly and helpful and will share the knowledge there as well. What's more important is that, of course, if I say something that is wrong, then you will definitely see corrections in said comment section. But Matti, I have $1 million computer with quadruple 2080 graphics cards, and I can play Battlefield 5 on Super Mega Extra Ultra with 1000 frames per second, no problem. Playing on low graphics is just for losers and noobs, right? Well, if that's how you feel, if that's how you prioritize your gaming, then I wish you the best of luck, and maybe you should just disregard from this part of the video. We play games for a variety of different reasons, and just because you play a game in a way that is different from me, that doesn't mean that I'm telling you that you are doing things wrong. Also keep in mind that some graphic settings have much more of an impact on your visibility than other. For example, effects quality normally has a much more negative impact when it comes to you being able to see your enemies than, for example, textures have. So maybe if you actually prioritize both, you can get a little bit of both by just tweaking the right settings. So my next tip is about the support class, and more importantly about the relationship between support and especially the assault class. Now, the support class is the class that resupplies the rest of the team with ammo. You can either have the smaller ammo pouch, which is default, or you can have the bigger ammo crate that you unlock after just leveling up your support class a few levels. Now, the important thing to know here is that the default pouch doesn't resupply the gadgets that are especially important for assault players that are doing what the assault class is designed to do, meaning dealing with enemy tanks. Now, some people might say that it's just as important for the other classes. That might be right. It's all a matter of priority and how you play the game, of course. And maybe the most important thing for you is to resupply yourself. So if you care about your own gadgets, the gadgets of your squad or your team, then you want to use this crate instead. And keep in mind, it only resupplies one at a time as far as I know. The big resupply stations that are out on the map, the fixed ones, they will resupply all the gadgets that you can carry and the ammo as well. Now, one of the strengths of the support class is the weapons bipods. It makes the weapons more accurate and easier to handle. This allows you to mow down enemies at long range without worrying about recoil whatsoever. I've only so far used a few of these LMGs, and I know that for bipodding there is the second one, or the first one that you unlock is by far the best, but it has a lot of drawbacks when you're not bipodding it. And just like with so many other things about Battlefield 5, I'm hoping to cover that as well soon in the future. So now, one of the things that is apparently more important with Battlefield 5 than its predecessor Battlefield 1 is headshots. Why? Well, because the devs said so. Headshots now deals more damage compared to body shots than before. So yeah, aim for the head, assuming that your aim is good enough and your control is good enough so that you can maintain your aim on the head for a few bullets once you put it there. Now, depending on the game, the weapon, and the weapon recoil, there is a technique for getting headshots by aiming on the upper torso and letting the recoil pull the aim up to the head. This is something that I practiced quite a bit back in the days, but nowadays with games the recoil isn't enough for that technique to work as well, and I just end up getting body shots if I try to do it. No! Another one! So what about grenade spam, rocket spam, and explosives? Is that a thing in Battlefield 5? Oh baby, a triple! Oh baby, a double! Explosives is mostly for the assault class, and in my experience the one that gives you the most kills is by far the sticky dynamite. And combining that with the Panzerfaust or the Piaf, which one you prefer, allows you to deal damage with explosives at both close range and at long range. So yeah, for the ones of you who enjoy blowing shit up, Assault is the class for you. Keep in mind though, sticky dynamite has a tendency to stick to places that it actually didn't hit. You can clearly see how you're aiming to throw the dynamite past a wall or into a window, only to see it get stuck on whatever edge of the opening that you tried to throw the sticky dynamite into. Also worth knowing, since most people compare Battlefield 5 with Battlefield 1, is that the sticky dynamite will be thrown a lot further than the dynamite of Battlefield 1. Oh baby, a double! Next up, I want to talk about the reinforcements you can call in based on the points you have collected with your squad. The one that seems to be the most popular is the last one, the V1 rocket if you play for the German Empire, or the JB2 rocket if you play for the Allies. If you are the squad leader and your squad has collected 41,500 points or more, that's when you can call this airstrike down. And yes, it can give you a lot of kills. What's easy to understand is that it's very easy to be tunnel visioned and blindsided by this rocket. There are other reinforcements, and some of them can be well worth calling in. This is a reinforcement. This tank is the Sturmtiger of the German Empire. It can be called in for only half the price of the rocket, and on many maps this is actually better. It shoots a 380mm shell with massive drop and massive splash damage. Just make sure that you can hit somewhere in the vicinity of an enemy and reap the rewards. I have yet to cover the equivalent of the Allied forces. Now this tank can hold 2 passengers, but it doesn't have a rotating turret. The only way you can aim with this thing is by turning the entire tank. But aiming isn't really what this tank is about. Now it's of course easy to draw the parallels to the behemoths, or at least one of the behemoths of Battlefield 1 when you see this tank, but that really isn't a good comparison. First and foremost, this tank does go down a lot faster if it actually does get countered, and keep in mind, you can repair it and you need to resupply it. Have to aim high! That's not high enough. Ah, that was too high. Now, this game has similarities and differences to Battlefield 1, but one of the things that is both similar and different at the same time is animations. You have more animations now, they are slower, but what remains the same is that they are buggy. Ah, quad.
Got it. Objective Charlie is ours.
So now for some reason, and I can't really figure this one out, DICE seemed to think that it was needed to make it easier to be able to drop heavy bombs on infantry players from the sky. Now in Battlefield 1 you either had to learn how to calculate for it if you were in third person, or you had to go in first person and actually see where you were dropping the bombs. Now none of that is necessary, you can just look at a new reticle. A major difference, however, is how bombers now handle, and the fact that as a pilot you can now shoot with a machine gun, similar to what you can do with attack planes and fighters. You do still have to, of course, deal with the slowest turning speed or the least maneuverability, but I guess that goes without saying. Now, flying in general is different from Battlefield 1, and that goes for all the planes, and that is definitely something that I'm going to cover on regular basis on this channel. Also, it's going to be covered on my secondary channel. AA, however, I've been at the receiving end of it, and I've used it a couple of times, and there isn't much of a difference from Battlefield 1. Now, you're definitely vulnerable sitting in a stationary AA, don't get me wrong, but there's not much to say about using it. Ah, shit, AA got me. So overall, the medic class is considered by many quite underpowered, and it's not only the new animation for reviving that people are talking about, it's also about the weapons. A large portion of the Battlefield community is expecting a buff to the SMGs of this class. I've played it quite a bit, even though Assault is my main class, and I just recently started using this one, the Suomi KP31, and it's probably the one weapon that I would recommend you to try out and to upgrade if you still want to play this class. And the reason is that if you upgrade this weapon, you have a massively changed SMG. You can actually upgrade it from its 20 bullets per magazine to 50 bullets per magazine, and of course change the handling. Up until using this weapon myself, I mostly used the MP40 once I had it upgraded, and until then I used the Sten, which is the default. So if you haven't tried the Suomi yet, then maybe, if you do, it can actually make you change your mind about the medic class as a whole. Or well, parts of it, anyway. Also remember, smoke is still a thing in Battlefield 5, but maybe not as effective as in Battlefield 1, and of course the effectiveness is reduced because of attrition. You can, however, use smoke in another way than to replace a damage-dealing grenade with a smoke grenade. In this case, I'm using a grenade launcher or a smoke grenade launcher, which of course can be combined with more smoke using smoke grenades if you so choose. Now, infantry game as a whole is different for a variety of different reasons. The way I experience it is that moving around on the map is a lot harder or more frustrating. I get the impression that camping is even stronger in this game than in Battlefield 1, and I feel like if this continues, then the Battlefield series is going to turn more into a game of hide and seek than an actual shooter. Of course, you have to remember that my experience of this game may not be the same way that you experience it. On top of that, even if we do have similar experiences in some regard, those experiences might be positive for you if they are negative for me, and vice versa. Now, I remember also that during the last couple of months of Battlefield 1, a lot of people actually had opinions about me using smoke as much as I did. Partly because, well, maybe they just didn't like that playstyle, and also partly because it makes it a little bit hard to see what's actually happening in a YouTube video, and of course on a Twitch stream. Now, I can assure you, based on attrition, again, you're not going to see the equivalent of that in Battlefield 5. The amount of smoke you see me using here is basically the amount of smoke you're ever going to see, which is, you know, it covers a few meters on the ground, and then it takes a while before you can reload it again. So yeah, keep in mind, basically, or well, in some regard, the Assault and the Medic class have had their weapons swapped. You may love it, you may hate it, but it's still a fact. But whatever you do, do not expect people to revive you the same way as people have done in previous Battlefield games. Reviving is very risky for a medic to do. You're extremely exposed in this new animation, and in most situations, especially if you're out in the open, it simply isn't worth it. In the beta and the alpha, I tried going for a lot more revives, but in many cases, all it does is gives the enemy another free kill. So instead of helping your team, you're actually hurting your team by trying to revive in a lot of situations. I'll spawn Bravo. Now, I'm pretty sure that at least most people would consider that the STG-44, the weapon I'm using here, was considered overpowered in the beta and the alpha. It is still a good weapon, I still use it as my primary, but it's no way near as dominant as it was back then. Personally, I think that the default weapon, the Stormgewehr, is actually better for close-quarter combat situations, and there are plenty of weapons that are better at long range. However, if there's one thing about this weapon that gives it its strength, it's actually its versatility, and it's not in any way a bad weapon at range, and it's no surprise that one of the most popular attachments on this weapon is the 3x scope. In this clip, the weapon is default in every way. It's the default iron sight, and it has no specializations whatsoever. And yeah, on a side note, you can revive any fallen squad mate, regardless of what class you are, it's just that it takes longer than doing it as a medic. The hide and seek, however, for PTFO players are completely independent of your class. There are people here on B, but there's gotta be... Oh, back here.
Fine work. Objective easy is now ours.
Are you serious? Fucking AP mine. Damn. Oh, nice. Revive. So yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning of the game, one of the biggest issue I have with Battlefield 5 is the visibility of the infantry gameplay. And what it does is that it takes away a lot of the joy from this game that it otherwise could have had. And one of the factors that plays in here is that the one-time reflex sight of the assault class is quite tinted. Not as tinted as it was in the beta and the alpha. They reduced a little bit of it, but it still reduces the visibility enough so that a lot of players, me included, choose not to use it, even though we otherwise would have. This sight that I'm using is a 2x sight, and normally I would never use a 2x sight on an automatic rifle. That's just not how I play. Battlefield 5 is the first game where I actually feel forced to do it. It's not really by choice. Also worth remembering is that this issue is only with the assault class. Both the medic class and the support class has, at least in my opinion, a lot better options. Fuck, I fell down.
Attention, we have lost objective Charlie.
They're upstairs. Oh, 4 guys upstairs.
Okay, I'm coming. Oh shit, grenade! Whoa! What happened? I'll see if I can get you. Oh, yeah.
Objective dog is ours now, soldiers.
Okay, you get heal. Can you heal me? Nice, 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 nice. Now, I could go on and on and on in this video, but I have to realize that eventually, despite that there is a lot more to cover, that is just going to have to wait to another video. So yeah, I hope that this beginner's guide of sorts was helpful. I'll give you a few more minutes of assault gameplay because that is my main class, and I'm looking forward to your feedback. So thanks for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. Stuck. Oh, that shotgun is dangerous. I've tried that out. Nice. I'm going A. Oh wait, there's a guy.
There, looks like trouble.
They're coming here from A.
Attention, objective dog is now ours.
Oh, he was on fire. Holy shit, that looks gruesome. Holy shit.
Objective Zora is now our soldiers.
I'm being attritioned. Ah, sniped.